Hey guys, welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylin. I'm a dual UK and American citizen, and today I am bored of talking about how they drive on the other side of the road in the UK and other common UK versus US differences. So we are going over 9 differences between the UK and the US that you might not have heard of. Now, I do these videos relatively frequently. I feel like I should put them in some sort of playlist so we can all keep track of all the differences we've talked about. You guys request them a lot because you seem to enjoy going over some more minute things that a lot of YouTubers don't cover, or you really wouldn't know unless you had lived in both countries, because you don't get exposed to enough if you're just visiting or if you've lived somewhere for a couple years. I feel like some of these things, it has taken me a lot of years to even have an instance where I would realize something was different. And I'll give an example later in this video. And before I get started, can I just put out a very genuine plea that if you are watching these videos but you aren't subscribed, please take 2 seconds to hit the subscribe button. I'm pretty sure it helps in the YouTube algorithm, and also it feeds my ego, basically. And lets me know how many of you are really watching, and commenting and liking and all those things. Subscribing is really helpful for the channel. So if you like what I do, please, 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 please hit subscribe. Okay, on to the differences. So the first thing I've written down is paracetamol. Yes, paracetamol. So I've done some research because when I first moved to the UK, everybody started talking about paracetamol, and I was like, I've never heard of paracetamol before, but it seems like everyone here takes it for everything. Side note, can we just talk about how paracetamol is like the go-to painkiller for everything? I'm not necessarily convinced that paracetamol works as well as people are convinced that it does. Maybe my body just reacts differently, but it doesn't seem to do that much for me. Does anyone else have that? Comment below. Let me know. I guess paracetamol isn't supposed to be super strong. But anyway, paracetamol all over the UK. So my research has led me to figure out that the US equivalent of paracetamol goes by a different name, acetaminophen. And I have heard of acetaminophen, and definitely that is a word commonly used in the US. However, we would typically call it Tylenol. Tylenol is a brand name, but it has become like the word Band-Aid in the US, which is a brand name, but we all use it to refer to anything that is a plaster, a British word for what we would call a Band-Aid. Tylenol is a brand name for a particular brand of acetaminophen. We just call it Tylenol. Everything is Tylenol that is acetaminophen. So from my research, I think they're basically the same thing, paracetamol in the UK and acetaminophen / Tylenol in the US. Also, side note, I realized the lighting is doing the thing again where it's going in and out because I film mostly using natural light. That's welcome to the UK. I could sit in a studio and pretend that everything is lit evenly all the time, but as you know, it can be sunny one minute, cloudy the next, hail the next. See, here we go. Here's the stream coming in as the clouds move over. This is just real life here. Okay, the next thing on my list are lawn games. So lawn games are popular in the US and the UK, but what we play is slightly different. So if you go to like a barbecue or maybe a British garden party, you might expect different games. So in the UK, I've mostly seen things like croquet and lawn bowls, which I talked about in another video, set up. In the US, we like games called cornhole and horseshoes. Now, cornhole, I really think Americans love it. Go to any like bar, restaurant with an outdoor area, wedding, barbecue. We love cornhole, and it's basically throwing a beanbag into a hole that's on this wooden structure. I'll insert a picture. I have looked up cornhole in the UK, and apparently there is a UK Cornhole Association website However, on there it says things like, we know there are pockets of the UK where dozens of people play. So I'm not convinced it's super popular here. I have never seen it out and about being invited. I haven't seen it at a party or an event, but it does exist in the UK apparently, but not as popular as in the US. Okay, the next thing on my list is pigs in a blanket. Now, this is another instance where I say something on the channel and a lot of my British viewers will come for me and say, you clearly have no idea what this means. And actually, it's not that I don't, it's that it's a difference between the American and UK usage. So, pigs in a blanket in the US, and what I was referring to when I was trying to explain sausage rolls to my audience, pigs in a blanket is like a tiny hot dog wrapped in a pastry. They're a little bit like fluffy of a pastry, but it's a tiny, tiny sausage or hot dog wrapped in a pastry. In the UK, pigs in a blanket is wrapped in bacon, not in pastry. So people did say to me, you don't know what pigs in a blanket are, and it's simply because in different countries, we use pigs in a blanket to mean different things. So if you're offered a pigs in a blanket in the UK, expect it to be wrapped in bacon. If you are offered it in the US, expect it to be wrapped in kind of like a puff pastry. Now, the next thing on my list is one of the things that I mentioned I didn't realize might be a difference until a couple of weeks ago. I used the word doppelganger around a British person, and they hadn't heard that word used before and were unclear what a doppelganger was. So, my question first to my British audience before I talk about doppelgangers is, do you know the term doppelganger? Is it something that you would ever use? Would you know what I mean? Doppelganger is a German word, but it's very commonly used in the US as well. And we use it to refer to basically somebody's twin that they didn't realize was their twin. So if you are out and about and you see somebody who looks just like me, but is clearly not me, you would say that was my doppelganger. Again, very, very commonly used in the US, but I did encounter a British person who had never heard of it. So I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to say this is definitely a difference. I would love for you guys to weigh in, but it took me off guard when they looked at me very confused when I used the word doppelganger. Okay, the next thing on my list is the concept of summer camp. Now, we've talked about summer in the UK versus the US in different videos. For children, summer in the US is much longer than in the UK, and I'm not talking about the weather, I'm talking about the time off of school. So in the UK, in a lot of places, it's about 6 weeks that you get for summer. You get more time off throughout the year. In the US, you do get a couple weeks off throughout the year, but they prioritize having a longer summer that could go for like 2 to 2.5 months. So in the US, we have a pretty long stretched out summer. This video is not about summer in particular, but about summer camp. If you've ever seen any sort of like American movies, TV shows, you've probably been introduced to the idea of American sleepaway camp. It is a very common cultural thing for kids to go away to camp, to American summer camps. It could be 1 week would be very, very common, but they go up to like 6 and 8 weeks. People will send their kids to these camps for a huge portion of the summer. I actually worked at an American summer camp when I was in college. I worked there for 3 summers, and I was there for basically 2 months because the kids were there for about 6 to 7 weeks. And it is everything that you could picture as a stereotypical American summer camp. That is what it is. There's a lake, you go boating, you do crafts, there's a swimming pool, there's activities each night, you eat in the dining hall, there's camp cheers. It is one of those things that I feel like American television and shows depicts pretty accurately. Now, here in the UK, there are some like day camps, and I'm not saying there are no sleepaway camps because it is possible. However, culturally, the idea of sending your kid off to summer camp in the summer is really not popular. The kind of sleepaway camps that do exist in the US that are very, very common, tons of options. You're not going to have as many options in the UK. I'm not saying there aren't any. Like I said, I know definitely like some of the military kids, they do camps for their kids, but it's typically going to be for about a week. You're not really going to send your kid to summer camp for 6 weeks. And the difference is just cultural in general of what is accepted as the way you should spend your summer. And the other has to do with the fact that a UK summer for kids is about 6 weeks. So when an American summer lasts for 2 to 2.5 months, sending your kid away for, 4 weeks means that you still have half the summer to do other things. Here, you've got 6 weeks. So you wouldn't necessarily be sending your kid away for 4 to 6 weeks because that is the entire summer. And a lot of families do use the summer as an opportunity to spend time together. Now, I will say before I worked at an American summer camp, I went to a couple of Girl Scout camps growing up, and I did mostly day camps in the summer. It is relatively expensive to send your kid away to a sleepaway camp. And I used to be of the opinion that Americans in summer camps, it was like parents who didn't want to watch their kid for the summer. You pay a lot of money and you send them to summer camp to essentially get rid of them. Having worked at a summer camp in the States, I can tell you that actually, yes, I'm sure there are parents that do that, but it was such a great time for the kids and the staff alike. The kids really built independence. How could it not be fun to be spending your time running around and playing outside and doing activities and being with your friends for 6 weeks? It wasn't just this place where the parents shipped the kids off, but the kids weren't having fun. It's actually a lot of fun. And I would encourage anybody who is watching this video who is in university or planning to go to university in the UK. There is an organization called Camp America where a lot of British students, and you can be older than a student, but it's very popular around university age. You can actually apply to go work for a summer in an American summer camp and do a bit of traveling in the US at the same time. Okay, now that I've talked for ages about American summer camps, let me check on my list. The next difference is a pretty short one. So it's, when watching the Winter Olympics, I noticed this. It's the term bobsleigh versus bobsled. In the US, we refer to this as bobsleds, and in the UK, they seem to refer to it as bobsleighs. Now, the next difference also has to do with the snow. So when you take one of these things and fly down the snow on a hill near your house, in America, we would call that sledding. In the UK, they call it sledging with a G. So that is another language difference. And again, this is why I say there are a lot of differences that if you haven't lived here a long time, you would never have heard. Because if you come here for a couple weeks, it's very unlikely that somebody's going to talk about sledding versus sledging. But when you live here for 10 years and you've experienced multiple winters and a couple times where we could have gone sledding versus sledging, then suddenly it becomes apparent that it is a difference. Okay, the next thing on my list is Calpol. Calpol. So this is a children's brand of medicine. I think it's basically children's paracetamol here in the UK. And it comes in lots of liquid varieties because kids don't take pills really. So people will talk very fondly here about Calpol. If your infant or child is sick, you might give them Calpol, and people kind of have very fond memories of the different types of flavors and stuff they enjoyed as a child. In the US, we do not have anything called Calpol that I've ever seen. Our equivalent, again, is Tylenol, so we will just call it children's Tylenol. And I have to say, culturally, there must be something different to do with this. There's a strange British cultural obsession to people reminiscing about the good taste of Calpol. I don't think I've ever really heard a lot of Americans talk about fondly remembering the medicine they had to take as a kid. Maybe I was just super picky, but definitely if you get British people of a certain age in a room and someone mentions Calpol, they all start talking about how much they enjoyed the taste of it. So if you're in the US visiting from the UK, do not look for Calpol, look for children's Tylenol. And the final one is another quick one, and it is the pronunciation of a country. In the UK, they call it Barbados, and in the US, we say Barbados. So it's an os versus an os. Again, very small difference, and I haven't actually looked up how people from this country refer to their own country, which is maybe should be the actual answer to what is correct. So I'm not saying which is correct, I'm just saying each country says it differently. So if you hear an ad for like a cruise here to the Caribbean, they would call it Barbados, and that's an emphasis on the os. And in the US, we call it Barbados, os. So that brings me to the end of this video. Again, you can see as this video has gone on, filming this in real time, it's taken about 18 minutes. It'll be edited down, but in this amount of time, the light on my face is constantly changing because this country cannot decide. Oh, there it goes again. So I hope you enjoyed this UK versus US differences video. I really enjoy making these. I keep like a master list of notes on my phone. And just as things come up, I write them down. So I will continue to do more and continue to try and figure out those very specific and lesser known UK versus US differences. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.